Apple takes a massive L in South Korea as a new law that is just about to be signed into full effect will make it illegal for them to force the various apps on their platform to use their payment processor. You may recall this was a big deal with the whole Epic versus Apple lawsuit, which is currently still ongoing, where Epic decided that it wasn't fair for Apple to decide what payment processor the customers or Epic were using, and so they uploaded their own payment alternative in violation of Apple's terms of service and was thusly immediately deleted off the platform, which has set in motion a whole large-scale lawsuit trying to argue that no, Apple has no right to enforce what payment processors you can and cannot use. This has now been put in law in Korea, or well, it's about to be. It just needs to be signed by the president, and apparently his party was one of the main forces pushing for it, so that is essentially just a little triviality. It's going to happen, and then what is going to happen to Apple? So, one of the big reasons why this was such a big deal for Apple, and incidentally as well, Apple aren't of course the only ones with an app store, and this goes for anyone with an app store, is that one of the primary ways they used to monetize their platform was by taking a fee on every transaction on the platform. So if you wanted to give $100 to Fortnite, for example, for a Martin Luther King costume or some such lunacy, and may I just sidetrack for a second here and say, a Martin Luther King event in Fortnite. Is that really the right place? A Time magazine sponsored one as well. Time magazine is, well, let's face it, practically a propaganda outlet like most mainstream media these days, frankly, and unsurprisingly, the children in a children's battle royale shooter game acted dum-da-da-dum like children and disrespected the heck out of the event. Shock and surprise. And since, of course, Martin Luther King, through no fault of his own, mind you, he was a great man, has now been absorbed as an icon of a certain movement that can not and will not be criticized, much less mocked. Epic, of course, had to remove all emotes, and there was also some words about banning people as well for using emotes in a video game. Ugh. What has the world come through to? Anywho, what this is going to do is, if you give $100 to Fortnite, as little as they do deserve it, back in the day, Apple would then take a slice off the top of that, and that slice could be pretty damn substantial. There was one commission fee which could reach up to 30% right here, like... That's a hefty fee, and that's one of the fees that, of course, Epic is fighting against, as well as Steam also famously take a 30% cut. It's a lot of money. Hell, YouTube takes a 30% cut of Super Chats as well. It seems to be just a thing that they can apparently get away with. But no longer. Now, of course, if Epic wanted to do so in South Korea, they could upload their app onto an app store on a platform and say, alright, here's one payment option, here's the other payment option. And if their payment option takes no fees, 100% of the money goes straight to the developer, and the platform takes 30%, well, in the $100 example, you, as a consumer, will now have the option between $100 or paying $130. Which one do you think you'll choose? Yeah, it's pretty obvious there, and this leads us on to the interesting point, doesn't it? This article here is fairly short, basically just outlines the news, which is a welcome goddamn rarity in this day and age, whilst also asking the question, what do you think about this? And that is the interesting thing, isn't it? Because on the one hand, in the case of the Apple App Store, they have made all of it. They've made the software, they've made the application around it, they've even made the device upon which the application is delivered. They've made all of it. They made all of the infrastructure, and they've made everything that makes it possible. I do believe that it is just that they do get a certain slice then of transaction that goes on their platform, just as a way to, pay server fees, basically, and a way to pay back the investment they put into making it. Because, of course, being able to make money off something you make, unsurprisingly, is a pretty damn key incentive in making sure that people actually make stuff. But there is a limit to this, and it is a monopoly. If you own everything around it, and yet you are Apple, one of the largest, most leading developers in this field, you are a monopoly. And hey, I'll extend this argument to Google and everyone else as well, and I would like to extend it far beyond just app stores. If you are a monopoly, you should be heavily restricted in what you are allowed to do. Perhaps a blanket ban on payment processing is not the way. Perhaps a certain fee might be better. Okay, Apple, you get to make X amount of percentage of the top, and after that percentage, you are not allowed to enforce your requirement of payment processor. So you get to take, say, 5 to 10%, right? Anything above that, you have to give the consumer an option. Maybe that could be a way. I don't know, because this is one of those things that we developed all of our systems for copyright, for patent, for ownership over certain things. Hell, even our basic ideas of monopolies were based on something very different to today's modern tech environment. Theoretically speaking, by the strictest meaning of a monopoly, Google isn't a monopoly because there are other services that offer search engines, that offer advertisement, that offer app store, stuff like that. They're not a monopoly in the, good old-fashioned technical sense of the word, but in reality, they absolutely are. They own 90% of the searches made on mobile devices. That is a monopoly. You cannot get around them. They own such a ginormous chunk of the advertising market that they can bully anyone else around with absolute imperviousness. If Google pulls your ads, you're done. Where else are you gonna go? Again, I do need to make that whole alternatives need to start becoming competitors video at some point, but YouTube as well. YouTube is a monopoly. No one is competing with YouTube because nobody really can compete with YouTube because they can't monetize. If they can't monetize, they can't bring over the creators. If they can't bring over the creators, they can't bring over the audience. And if they can't bring over the audience, they can't bring over the advertisers. And so it goes in perpetuity. It is a big problem. And this, as imperfect as it may be, is one of the starting steps to fix that. It is a government going in and saying, all right, this isn't a monopoly by the most technical aspect of the law, but this can't be allowed to continue this way. It is stifling creativity, it is stifling competition, and we do need to open up this marketplace, and we need to lower the barrier to entry, and we frankly need to siphon off some resources from these ginormous bullshit companies, really. Apple doesn't deserve 30%. Even though they made everything required to get that 30%, they're frankly too big at this point to be allowed it. This is the thing with antitrust as well, which I hope... Well, the thing is, antitrust was getting some decent traction in the US, but, then the thing we're not allowed to talk about happened, and ever since, silence. Weird. Strange. Mystifistical indeed. Though there has been some pushes in America. A bipartisan bill targets Apple and Google's ability to profit from app stores. Essentially, this is a US attempt to do more or less the same kind of thing that has now happened in South Korea. And I do hope it gets traction, though, again, in the US, you need broader things than this. There has also been some competitive attempts as well. I don't recall the name of the governmental entity, but it's the body that oversees mergers through various companies and to make sure that no single company gets too large. If 25% of the business and another 25% of the market join hands, theoretically that shouldn't be allowed to happen, but with stuff like Facebook and Instagram, etc., it has, which is a big problem, and is why now many of these purchases are being investigated again. It is heartening to see that more and more big tech is getting challenged. I'm just hoping that, my theory has always been big tech is screwing me now, whilst the government is merely a potential screwing in the waiting. I just hope we avoid aforementioned screwing. Nevertheless, congratulations, South Korea. You may, in fact, be best Korea. Despite my objections, after all, in Wargame Red Dragon, we all know who best Korea is. North Korea may not have much in the way of tanks, or airplanes, or helicopters, or anything useful, but they have lots of dudes, and that's always fun in a strategy game at least. Until next time, I have been Art, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.